My name is Fred Rast. I'm the mayor in town. I grew up in town. I'm a local boy. My father and grandfather had businesses in Highlands. When I was growing up, I spent a lot of my life in Highlands working with my father and grandfather, but I've resided in Atlantic Highlands ever since I was 3, actually. You know, I'm from the old school. Probably at 9 years old, I worked every weekend with my father and my grandfather. My grandfather had an oil truck. So I can remember at 9 and 10, him having me drag the hose out and then re-crank the hose. The old oil trucks had hand cranks. And my grandfather would con me into cranking the hose. And then my father had a gas station. My grandfather also had a hardware store. So I worked in a hardware store. I worked in a gas station right up until I got married. I was 23 when I got married. I was a police officer in Atlantic Highlands at that time, and I continued to work for my father in the gas station for quite a few years until he got rid of it. Living in the community, and you know, I'm saying the community, it's part of Leonardo, parts of Middletown, Highlands, Atlantic Highlands, this whole area. It's just a great place to grow up. The school systems are good. The people are wonderful. They're a multitude of volunteers for everything in the small towns. You know, if you have a fire, if you have a problem that occurs in the town, everybody pulls together, and it's very, very great. Our specific town of Atlantic Highlands, over the years, has been run extremely well. I wish I could take credit for it all, but I didn't. I've been lucky enough since I've been mayor to have a great council. I have tremendous support of all of the management people in town that run the different departments. And, you know, we're all family. A good testament of that is when we've had house fires and we had tragedy and people unfortunately died in house fires, which has occurred over the years. The town comes together and they all cry together very much. You know, we're really good that way, good community. When good things happen, when we have affairs and stuff like that, it's a great place to come and enjoy and have a lot of laughs. The town is wonderful in this respect that we have a lot of the old traditions that we've kept in place. We have our Fireman's Fair that we had when I was a kid. We have a Halloween parade that we had when I was a kid. We have a Memorial Day parade. We have very active groups, the Lions Club, the Chamber of Commerce, the American Legion, the Historical Society, our Arts Council. We have a lot of groups that really work together. And we're very fortunate that everybody is really shown a lot of dedication to our town and to the people of our town. We're in a transition phase now that the young kids in town, or my wife and I were the young kids, now we're the old people. And many of my neighbors are grandsons and granddaughters of people that I grew up with that are stayed in our area. My class, I graduated high school in 1962, and I think we graduated with about 67 or 68 people out of our high school, small. We graduated right from the same school that's now a grammar school. And of that number of people, we still have probably 15 or 18 people that still live in town. We have more of their children and grandchildren that still live in town. So it's a very close-knit community. Our volunteer fire department, our first aid squad, you know, all you have to see is an alarm go off at 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's literally 100 people out there fighting the fire and helping each other. We have a good rapport with Highlands, with Middletown, Union Beach. All of the surrounding shore communities work together and support each other a lot. When Sandy hit, we had several hundred members of Atlantic Highlands that went on the weekends to Highlands to help clean up Highlands. We have conferences between the towns and support one another. Atlantic Highlands just donated some equipment to Union Beach because they lost everything. It's just nice being in this kind of community. You know, I've been through a lot. I have 41 and a half years military service between reserve, active duty, and guard. Plus, I was a policeman in town. I was a county detective. I was a state police officer with the Division of Criminal Justice. And I've been exposed to a lot of different communities, but by far, I think our little town of Atlantic Highlands is probably one of the best places to live and grow up in. Some of the facts that we have about town: we have the largest municipally owned yacht harbor on the East Coast. Sandy hit us. We had about $30 million worth of damage in Sandy. And if you go down the harbor, it's almost back 100%. And that's really only 5 or 6 months of heavy construction. You know, it took, of course, the storm is longer than 5 or 6 months ago, but there was a lot of engineering time and downtime and things of that nature. We have the highest point on the East Coast closest to the water, Mount Mitchell. And we're very lucky with Sandy because we have so many houses that are elevated. Unfortunately, we had probably 3 houses that were really destroyed and maybe another 15 that had flooding. A lot of the flooding occurred from a creek that we have and had heavy influx of water because of the winds and the tide surge. We had about 13 and a half feet in Sandy, tide surge, over and above our normal high tide level. So that really wrecked our harbor. Now, if you look at the new harbor, we have floating docks that we put in. We have a wonderful job being done by a company called J.H. Reed. They're really, I'm very impressed with the workmanship that they're doing. And we have now, we had all stationary piers, 13 of them. We now have 3 stationary piers and everything else is floating docks. The floating docks have pilings that are metal pilings that hold the docks that are about 16 feet above high tide level. The idea being that in a future storm, and let's pray to God we don't have anything worse than we had or not much worse, the floating docks will stay in place because the pilings will allow the docks to go up and down. In Sandy, we removed a lot of boats out of the water because we were working just about around the clock removing boats. But the problem is because the water was so high, the boats that were up on land, up on chockings, chocked up on the land, floated because the water came in so high, and it caused those boats to slam together. And we had a big mess in the harbor, but we're back. The harbor is going to be probably the best harbor on the East Coast, bar none, and probably the best built when we're finished. We hope to have like a grand, really big affair in October, and hope to get the governor down, the lieutenant governor, and everybody else, the senators. I mean, it's really a great sign of quick response to the storm, and we did a wonderful job of mitigating any future storms. Our engineering company, which was T&M, helped us immensely, and we're very happy where we're at. And luckily, and thank God to President Obama and the federal government, FEMA is going to reimburse us 90% of our expenses. So $30 million job, our town is only exposed to about $3 million that we have to shell out at the end once it's all over, and that's pretty wonderful.